Hey everyone, Matt C here. Welcome to Scrollers Podcast. We're doing something a little different tonight. Or actually, I suppose this is during the day, and you're watching this pre-recorded. But I am in the chat with you. Not to worry. I've got some gas station Haribo gummy bears, red, white, and blue, of course. They were not half off. They've got a half off table. The red, white, and blue is still not half off. In mid-July, year of our Lord 2026. But looking back, well, I guess I should say we're going to do a little slideshow. This is going to be a little different. This is going to be fun. It's a vignette into the life of Matt C. Feeling a little shoegazy, feeling a little autumnal lately, and that's partly because coming out of a 7-month rut of no hunting season. Maybe not quite 7 months, but I do. I'm kind of like a hunting guy right now. It's kind of like a thing, I've been a comic book guy. I've been a theater guy. I was never a music guy. Right now I'm being a hunting guy. Don't know what that is. I really don't know what that's about, but we're going to go on a little adventure to the great state of Alaska together as I reminisce about the very expensive bird watching trip I took to Alaska. And we're going to find out about that. And this is something I've been meaning to put together. I thought it'd be interesting. Actually, not going to eat these Haribos in front of a mic. I'm realizing that's probably fairly disgusting for anyone who's listening to the audio. But I will drink some tea. So I'm just going to play, and I'm going to pause. We're going to EFAP this. Put together a slideshow's video. Some of the video has audio. Some of the audio is me describing what you're looking at. So we might EFAP some of that. And some of it's just pictures. So, without further ado, basically, let me just, a little bit of table setting. I turned 40 last year, and already probably TMI for some of you. Too much information, but I turned 40 in I'll close kimono on which month, but it was last year, guys. It was last year, and I decided I think I had honestly had some scotch one night that summer, and I was looking at the New Mexico Department of Fish and Wildlife Ducks Unlimited hunting trip. What do you call it? You can bid through Ducks Unlimited, and the money goes like half to whatever you're bidding on, and the other half goes to fundraising for New Mexico, because I wanted to hunt in New Mexico, because New Mexico is a super neat place. Long story short, I'll never do that again, because I learned more about how basically you can't hunt in New Mexico if you're not a resident. It's one of the states, and there may soon be more of these. It looks like Colorado might be going in that direction, and more. Utah is pretty tough. But I thought if I looked at what New Mexico was offering, it turns out it's mostly hunts for anywhere and everywhere. And a lot of them are guided tours. A lot of them are super expensive. If they're in Mexico, it's like $20,000. The bids end up being like $20,000 to $30,000, for a ram hunt or an elk. They've got some elk. They've got a lot of elk, actually. They've got some herds. They've got some pretty big mule deer, and those really get up there. And I was looking for a budget hunt. I was looking for a hunt that, I mean, it wouldn't be 20 to 30K. So relatively, it would be budget by those standards. But I was looking for something where it would not be a guided hunt, so I could I was not just making the shot, but I was actually finding the deer, and I wanted that to be in a spot with relatively low pressure on said deer, and I wanted it to be a high likelihood of success. Now those are really hard things to ask for. That's like asking for something cheap, fast, and high quality. That's typically a trifecta you should not attempt to acquire, to obtain. But you're going to find out how well I did with that. Because I bid, and I think I was the only person who bid on this. I bid to hunt on an island called Kodiac Island in Alaska. Let's just go ahead and press play as we talk through this. Yep, okay, it's working. So you can see just how interesting the weather was. So this was beginning of December. Winter was certainly setting in, and I made the bet that if I went early season for the hunt, actually, yeah, I can do more table setting because it's going to be a slideshow for several minutes. You can see the main island, mountain chain. I have no idea what that mountain chain is called. Coming out of Anchorage, as you can see, it was just a couple-hour trip from Anchorage to kind of down the. For those of you who don't know, there's kind of islands that hop that are adjacent to the coast, if that makes sense. There you go. I'm already in Kodiak. I guess I didn't have enough time for table setting. Oh, there's a bear. So that's me hanging out in Kodiak Island Fish and Wildlife headquarters, looking at a grizzly, female grizzly that was taken in 2011, I believe. It was a nuisance bear that was. I got the story of this from the guy who essentially hosted me in an unguided capacity at his cabin while I hunted. This is one of the biggest bears ever taken. It was something like 2,000 pounds, and kept coming into town and bothering people. And so Fish and Wildlife dispatched it about 15 years ago and honored it in this capacity, which I thought was interesting. I mean, pictures. I mean, can you take a picture of a grizzly and understand what you're looking at? I submit that you cannot in terms of the girth. It's just a beautiful. Let me move my little face. Super cool animal. It's probably better. Yeah, a little bit more table setting. Sorry, there's a lot on this table. So I want to make sure it's plated nicely. Yeah, the calculus I made was I had a better chance. Essentially, you've got better weather if you hunt earlier in the year, because deer season in Alaska is essentially, at least in Kodiak, on Kodiak Island, is essentially beginning of November to middle of December. And as with most things, you can expect that opening week is the most popular time to go because it's the best weather. The deer have no idea you're coming, right? Or they're least likely to know. They have not been pressured the week before, So if you're the first to the field, you're most likely to meet deer that are not expecting you. So people expect, the trade-off is you're there, you're bumping shoulders against everybody else. who also is under the impression that that they can find unspooked deer. So the other way you can square that circle is you can go later in the year, and it's worse weather. The deer are less pressured, and there's a third factor. The third factor is it's kind of subclause to the better weather slash worse weather factor is that better weather means the deer are as high up the mountains as they can afford to be. That's where they like it, and you can imagine why. Because they're typically not pressured the higher up they go. And they're going to be right at the tippy top of these mountains. These insane. Let's go back slightly. Let's check. Let's check back in. They're at the very tippy top of those at the beginning of November because there's going to be less snow. They're going to be down. Well, I don't know. Most of these have snow year round, as you would expect, but they might be at the very top of those smaller ones. Now, once it starts snowing, and of course you book these things months in advance. I booked mine 6 months in advance, so I had no. I mean, you're just rolling the dice, especially with how the weather seems to be less predictable every year. But you're basically I mean, suffice it to say, you're hoping that that snow will force the deer down the mountain because they're gonna stay at the tippy top unless the snow pushes them down. You're looking for a foot of snow or more, and once it becomes a foot of snow, the deer says, "Well, I can't. I'm not going to find food here, and I certainly don't want to bed down here. So I'm going to go down the mountain to where the snow is not 12 inches deep." They may just go down to where it's 6 inches. They may go all the way down to where there's no snow, but they're going to try to find the edge of the no snow to snow barrier, right? So that means it's less hiking to get to them, which is fun. There's another secret factor to this that I did not calculate, and that's a little. We'll get to that, but so you can see, like, so I elected to go later in the year because I thought worse weather would mean that the deer would be forced down closer to where I'm at, and I would be one of the few people hunting that time of year. So they would be, if they were pressured in November, they were not pressured when I would be there, and I could be a sneaky individual, sneaky fella, and get to them better. So that's just the calculus I made, being a man from Florida, try to figure out what can increase my likelihood of success. Not doing a $30,000 guided hunt. Just a super nice looking bear. You can tell how excited I was for this. There was actually a guy. Well, we're already. When I was leaving, before I got picked up, I did my tag wrong or something, and I bought something twice, and I didn't buy something else at all, so I had to fix that at the desk. But the guy who was picking me up was late, so it was easy to figure that out. And there was actually the guy, the bear biologist specialist who deals with nuisance bears, actually got called to deal with I think they're called brown bears when they live on the island, but they're genetically basically the same, and they are grizzlies when they're on the mainland. But because the grizzlies, they've diverged because they're not swimming all the way out to Kodiac Island. They just have a different name for them because it's a different genetic population. But he Yeah, he loaded up a pretty significant rifle with some pretty big shot, and I had a belt of supporting ammo for after taking a particular call. And he just walked out all morose, and he just had a serious expression, and he had a sad expression. Could have been reading into that. I probably was. But I asked the secretary what was going on. And she was like, yeah, he got called in to deal with the bear. And it was interesting because everybody in that office were massive management enthusiasts, which for all of you anti-hunters out there is code for people who enjoy hunting and like putting the taxidermied result on their walls. And this individual did have a bear. He did have a bear rug on his wall, and it was a brown bear, and it was a big one. You know, and if you keep in mind that brown bear equals grizzly in that area, you can just imagine how much of his wall in his cubicle office was covered with said brown bear. It was pretty cool. I wish I could have done a ride along just to see what that whole, start to finish, what that whole difficult scenario was like. I don't know. Maybe just shot the rifle in the air and scared it away. I don't know. Maybe just tranquilizes it. And I got the impression that they don't tranquilize for those particular situations. But so this was the hunting, I guess like the store that everybody stops at before they go out to their cabins. And these were the black-tailed deer. This is the Sitka black-tail deer that had been hunted that season and were being submitted for Alaska's, competition for, Boone and Crockett, I think, the biggest horns for the year, biggest antlers, which is pretty neat. You can tell that they, I just think they're cool. Sitka's kind of neat, as you would expect in a, you've got whitetail, you've got mule, you've got blacktail Columbia, and then you've got blacktail Sitka. Those are the 4 species we have in North America. And the Sitkas, obviously they like Alaska. They're not native to Kodiak, but they were introduced, like most things other than the bears. Like most things in Alaska, they are introduced for, let's call it spade for fundraising for fish and wildlife. They're wild animals introduced on these islands, completely free range, free roaming, no fences or anything. And they travel between islands and all this sort of stuff. And, essentially pay for the salaries of all those people that I saw, Fish and Wildlife Department, because of the tag expenses. And Sitka's neat. You can tell they have like these gray antlers, like you always have to wonder about nutrition, like what the I don't know, like the vitamin intake, like I don't know. They're eating stuff that deer didn't grow up, like they're not in a they don't have like 100,000 year history with eating this particular scrubland stuff that you're going to see a lot more of in the coming issues. I don't know. So you just don't get brown antlers. You get gray ones. Some of them like slate gray, like, like completely desaturated. And Sitka deer, they're thicker. They're kind of like bulldog shape. You're going to see one. They're a bit shorter, thicker. Just all the things that you would expect that a stockier animal would need to be to handle, year-round living conditions, on the coast of upper Alaska, basically outer Alaska. And their antlers reflect it too. Their antlers are stockier and shorter, but pretty nice and thick. It's pretty cool. So it's enough on that. Yep, I'm getting in the boat with. Let me move myself back down. So now that I got to Kodiak, I had to get to the cabin, which was out on Cranberry Island, which you'll see some like overhead flight pictures by the end of how far that out was. But there's a couple hunters, like there was some combo deer and duck hunters with me. Nice Mennonite couple, actually, that I befriended, really hit it off with, and then a couple people who were just there for duck. And we were getting in, and we had a week's worth of provisions, yada yada. He had a very expensive all aluminum boat, which I suppose you need. You can't do any fiberglass out here if you have to be smashing into ice certain times of the year. So, pretty nice boat. Going back, pressing play. So it was pretty cool. I think it was like 2 p.m. This is this is the cabin we stayed at. He had cookies for us. I don't know. Okay, now we finally get to some yeah. It's pretty nice. As you expect, we had a generator, we had Starlink, but there's no roads out here. Everyone's getting anywhere by boat. The nearest neighbor, I saw her. We'll get to some of her story in a bit, but she was in her 70s, and she used to run a guided fishing. Oh, I should pause here because it's going to get interesting. A guided fishing sort of an estate, for like almost industrial level, like group fishing tour kind of things. It was a couple miles away, and away from this cabin. And I passed through it a couple times when I was hunting fox, and we will get to that story. But yeah, she'd only leave and go. She had no family. She lived there most of the year, and she would leave for a couple weeks a year, and she happened to not be there that week, which is why I hunted her property with permission from the cabin neighbor. But she had a deal with the local indigenous tribe that somebody would come pick her up once a month to take her into town and buy her supplies. And these guys apparently, maybe the individuals who agreed to this proposal, she would pay them and everything, but they frequently would neglect to pick her up, would just forget, or I don't know. It was a sore issue with my cabin host, because one time she had to walk 2 miles, and she came all the way to the house, and they didn't happen to be there to the cabin I was staying at. My host didn't happen to be there because he was out, on the boat on, I don't know, I think he was fishing, with some guests, with some clients, and she realized she had to leave a note and didn't have a pencil in her purse. So she had to walk 2 miles back in the snow, go get a pencil, and then with a piece of paper, write down, like, help me, I'm running out of food, I've already run out of gas, I'm sleeping in the frozen Alaskan winter by myself. Could we go in and get some groceries for me in town, in Kodiak? So then she walks 2 miles out again, puts this on the door, and then walks home, hoping that note stays and gets read. And it did, and they did go get her groceries. That's how crazy it was. She did have a husband. Her husband left her and moved to Singapore to chase prostitutes. So, That's how these stories go out here. But so this is first day of hunting. This is first day of deer hunting for me, and we looked at Onyx, which is like a cool, satellite sort of advanced Google Maps that people like to use, and we picked our strategy. And if you keep in mind, this is an unguided tour, so he legally, in order to keep his license, he can't guide me, because if he did, he'd have to be licensed as such, and he'd honestly have to do a heck of a lot more work, because he'd have to take me all the way to where the deer are, and he's not going to do that. He's got to feed me and clothe me and shelter me. He's not clothing me. He's sheltering me, and he's dropping me off. He actually can't even point out if there's deer on the beach. He can't point to them, because that would be acting as a guide. But he can just like stop the boat and pick his teeth or thumb his nose until I see it, and then I could shoot it from the beach. Apparently, a lot of times these Sitka deer come down and eat seaweed on the beach, and my host, they get deer every year and they just get them from the beach, which is kind of crazy. But didn't seem like fair chase to me. But that ended up being the only deer I saw in person. Spoiler alert, was very far away. There was an adolescent subadult male that was did not have big enough antlers to be a legal take. This first day, this would be that was the island that my friends were going on. You can see how bushy-tailed I was. This is where they dropped me off at. This was a duck hunter took this picture as they were going duck hunting. They said, "Hey, we should probably take a picture of you just in case." They were half serious. They're like, just in case your missus needs like last known location. We wanted sure, like, if we never hear from you again, and search and rescue have to chip your frozen body out of the frost in the spring, that we want to know that you died happy. So we're going to take a picture and text it to you. So that's what I look like. Dropped off. Backpack too heavy. Some of my gear, I don't know. This is a lot of Amazon gear. Took a lot of effort to get here. So where I went short, I did not go short on strategy. I did go short on a name brand accessories. So is what it is there. So this would be so we're talking about, I had my mission that I chose to accept was to go up a literally a 45-degree incline mountain and try to get to 2,000 feet, because I was told by the non-guide host that the deer were showing up at about 2,000 feet. Now that is tops of these particular mountains just had a bit of snow, but the top of the mountain was like 3,000. So I had to go 2/3 of the way up, and we're going to start to address the hidden other factor of hunting in December in Alaska, and that is that you have between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. for sunlight. That's it. So 7 hours sounds like a long time, but you're going to burn. I burned, I'll press play. That took about an hour to get through that. To go all the way up there. You can't see my mouse, but you see the tree line. I had to hike up into that tree line to get to 2,000. I think I got to 1,800, and I glassed. I had my binoculars for the rest. Yeah, so you can see. You can see how level over my on the right hand side of the video. You can see how I'm not you know, I am in sync with the horizon line here. So hiking this with you know, with like ice shoe clampers on, like the stuff you see people add to their shoes when they're hiking Everest or something. I was smart enough to bring that because even though the ground was not frozen, it was much too challenging to accomplish without razor blades, without steel spikes attached to the bottom of your shoes. So that was a lifesaver. I still managed to twist my knee and may have permanent damage from this, but I got all the way to the top. And it was just so cool. You can see down there, uh, the mist kept rolling in and out, and that was a challenge for visibility. But I was just watching. I think they would be right whales or maybe gray whales, just doing their thing way down in the harbor. All kinds of sea ducks, you know, doing V's and then, you know, landing down at random points in the water, and you could just watch. It was the most peaceful thing in the world. Tons of deer sign from overnight, but no deer. No deer seen. No deer spotted. It was kind of heartbreaking. You're going to see in a moment where my Mennonite couple friend went off to. So still going higher and higher. So, you know, they dropped me off at the edge there. So I think I got here at I think it took me 3 hours to get to 1,800 feet. There's some scat. So the deer live there. Okay, so pause. So the challenge that my the other hunters had, the Mennonite couple, was to go up the mountain that I mentioned at the front of this. I don't have to go back to show it, but if you look on the right hand side of this, you can see a ridge line that they had to climb up from the coast, from the water line up to that right hand ridge line, come across that ridge line and enter into this valley sort of situation. You can see the snowy sort of cup sort of deal going on right on the left hand side. It's like a little weird ridged basin, you know, filled with a light dusting of snow, and right inside of there, and that would be, I don't know, I suppose like southwest facing. You can tell, I mean, it doesn't get all the sunlight, but it got a decent amount. And right in there, apparently, is just like, it's like Jurassic Park in there. There's just herds, there's just insane amounts of deer. But it took them about 3 hours to get to the top, to the edge of the mountain line. I didn't actually hear too much about, they did not get all the way into that area. And, you know, basically, if it takes you 3 hours to get there, then you have 1 hour to hunt. And then you need to start heading down because you have 3 hours before sunset. It's going to take you. You don't want to be doing a 45-degree incline with no trails. You know, maybe a headlamp if you remember to bring that. And no daylight. It's no bueno. So that's what they attempted to get to. But this is how tough it is. There wasn't as much snow. It may surprise you to know that there has been less snow, historically less snow on Kodiac Island than there has been in many years. So pushing, so we had less, but you know, weather doesn't affect when the sun sets or rises, right? So you still had 7 hours, but you had to get higher up, essentially. So you had to get to the top of any particular mountain if you were going to hunt. Some of you guys might be wondering, what do you do if you actually get a deer this high up? We're going to get into that. Yeah, this is me trying to zoom into that ridge line just because it looked super cool, and that would be neat to catch them. But this is about as high as this would be that tree line that I mentioned. That's as high as I got. And that's what I look like coming down. This is, and then sunset, 3:30, 3:45 p.m. And then you put the headlamp on and you do the little flashy bit, and then they can see you because, yep, that's not picking me up. Okay, so day two. Day two was, I decided that was the most challenging hike of my life. While the duck hunters are still here, and I did bring my shotgun, I managed to stuff that in my rifle case somehow. I'm going to go duck hunting with them. So that's what we did. And it was there was harlequin. There was which is a pretty rare duck. You can only hunt like there's only like 100 or no, it's in the double digits. You can hunt them in Washington State, but it's a pretty rare limited quota tag. But you can hunt them just with the duck stamp license in Alaska, but they're hard to come by. So that's the trophy one, and if you get it, they really do ask you that don't just shoot it and then eat it. Certainly don't shoot it and throw it away or anything like that. Please, shoot it and mount it, because it's a very special bird. It's not rare. You're not shooting an endangered species, but it's a very special bird. And then there's also tons of also special birds, but in greater abundance. A goldeneye, which you can see here, and oh gosh, bufflehead. That's a bufflehead and a goldeneye right in front of me. But yeah, so it's just like hanging out on a tiny island. You can see the decoys that we put out there. We had a John boat that would run out and go grab them if they came in. But it's for those of you who haven't done duck hunting. Duck hunting in Alaska is particularly fun because you're not hiding in a boat blind. You can do it from the coast, which was cool. Just hiding on an island, which I enjoyed, and yeah, they're super quiet, and they just kind of come in, and you just have to be on alert, all morning and afternoon. Yeah, there's my buddy. You just kind of hide there. You don't have to be super covered. Did anybody limit out? I think the guys who just came for ducks did. One thing to keep in mind, if for those of you who haven't duck hunted, I did find out pretty early on that I have to be more aggressive in calling my shots because I was being polite. And the duck would clearly be shot by me first, and then somebody shot second at the same duck, and then I would be the polite, Southern hospitality guy, and I would say, great job. And in my head, I'm like, but we all know I shot first, so it's my duck. Well, the teenagers who were on the island with us that were supposed to be finding out who did what, were not paying attention. So they would just pick it up and say, oh. And they're like, well, he said good job, so I guess that means it goes the other one. So it was a little uh, there's a little bit of I, I think it should probably just be one person shooting at a duck, unless you are clearly just trying to help by finishing the duck on behalf of your friend. You know, otherwise it gets funny. So most of the ducks, I think, were shot by more than one person, and it was not clear by the afternoon. We were much more clearly. We're like, all right, do you have that exact species? Do you have that Drake goldeneye? Do you intend? Do you need a second for your multi duck taxidermy display? Um, you would like to? Okay, then it's yours. We'd have to have these conversations, or maybe you'd like a third, or maybe you're just trying to limit out and you're just trying to go home to tell people that you hit the maximum quota, which I think was 9 birds per person of any species, other than the harlequin, which I think you were only allowed to take 2, maybe. I think it was. So we would have these conversations. Or I was looking at there was almost took a harlequin hen, a female harlequin, and then we just had this desperate conversation. I was like, are they beautiful? And everybody's like, nah, not really. I'm like, really? Okay, well then let's just let it stay there, because I'm not gonna get 9 ducks with me and 2 other people on one island. So maybe a drake will come by. Anyway, these are the sorts of conversations that unskilled hunters have when they're trying to get out. But I got 5 ducks, so I was happy. And guess what? One of them was a harlequin. So, oh, so that's there were 2 types. I mean, I'm not gonna fill in every single detail here because some of it is already kind of hazy, but you can see harlequin on the raised shelf on the left hand side on the windowsill. Super beautiful duck. You can see there's also you see the ones with the yellow or yellow and orange, like the kind of like penguin style beaks. I don't remember the name of those. It's a different species that you had to. They actually don't fly in. They never really come in to the shoreline to hang out. They like to just stay out in the water, and you had to like lay in a flatboat, and that would keep you like if you were a duck and you were flying just like a couple feet above the water, which is what these ducks do. You wouldn't see a person on, like you would only see a head, which might as well be an otter or a seal or something. And you wouldn't see a boat because the boat was like a super thin, like hangs under the water kind of boat, if that makes sense. And they did that. The guy the Mennonite husband that I was hunting with in the morning, he was getting bored because he was being more successful than me. He was getting bored of the hunt on the island, I think, and he was like, there became an opening to sit on one of those little boat thingies and try to get these penguin ducks. And he said, we looked at each other, and I appreciated this. We both looked at each other like, well, who wants to go? Which is nice because there was only one seat because the guy that would sit in it that morning had already limited out. So I kind of wanted him to go because I wanted to catch up to him on the shore with the sort of ducks that we were getting. So I was like, I'm not gonna taxidermy one of the penguin ducks. So I was like, well, he needs more variety, and he's explicitly came here to do the combo thing with the deer and the ducks. So I was like, you go do it, and he got a whole bunch, and I was super happy for him. I think he did limit out. It's all kinds of funny ducks. They're all beautiful, just amazing ducks. So, day 3 was hunting up here. Here's me hunting with. Look at the. I'm just so. I mean, the. So just so you guys know what the difference between uh, Amazon gear and quality, like Sitka, which is a top tier hunting outfitter, clothing wear guide sort of company, like what top tier outfitting looks like versus Amazon. Amazon on the left, top tier outfitting on the right. I think I had like you could even the gloves. The gloves I had were like hardware store leather gloves. Just outrageous. Notice that my friend on the right has a looks like a little walkie-talkie. That becomes important because um, that's a satellite phone that allows you can't it basically functions like a walkie-talkie, but it may not surprise you that there are no cell towers anywhere on this island. So, or any of the adjacent ones. So the only way you're talking to someone is if a satellite happens to pass over. And so he had one, and I actually had one. It's like a thing that you can like. It essentially allows you. It gives you the ability to do data for your cell phone in the form of texting. So you could send your GPS location and you could text, and you could hit a button that automatically calls, you know, the rescue department, whoever that would be, Coast Guard or something, to come to your location. So you could do those 3 things. And I didn't quite figure out how. I thought I figured out how to work it. This is something that I attempted to achieve to figure out the night before for the first time. And yes, this was an Amazon purchase. It's a decent brand, but I didn't have it figured out. And turns out my friends didn't fully have theirs figured out either, which is interesting. So that becomes a story. So this is what it was like at the top. This was 2,000. This was 2,500 feet of after 3 hours. It wasn't quite 45 degrees the whole way up, but we were now on a different island. It was actually, well, it's the same island that we were in the cabin on. So we just went behind the house and then went straight up that. That was 45 degrees for most of it, but it did even out. And we in 3 hours we were able to get much higher than we were the previous day. And it was already 1 p.m. maybe, maybe noon. I think we had a couple hours up there, so it was probably noon by the time we got to the top. And I'm just realizing I don't think the audio is going to work for this, so I'll just have to speak straight over it because there is footage coming up of me talking. Yeah. Hey guys, that's what it was like. So by Mennonite, I'll just let it play because you're not
unnamed mountain.
Actually, you probably are hearing this, so I'm just gonna let it play.
In Alaska, wanted to share what that looks like. Apparently, there's deer up here. I'm seeing sign, seeing hoof prints in the fresh snow from this late this morning. I'm seeing a lot of poop and not much else. Came up here with 2 other folks. Super nice. A Mennonite couple, actually. And they're much more able to handle this than Florida man is. So I stayed back and I've been glassing some areas. And to no avail. So I'm going to try and hunt from a boat tomorrow. That's the plan, if you can believe it. Might get a I don't know, beach and try.
So just so you know, I did 2 takes on this video. One to shame my friends out of sitting on the computer as much as they do, and then one more generic. And apparently, I left both of these in. So
to get a fox, but yeah, this could be us. A little less $250 conferences. I don't know, a little more adventure. I don't know. IDK, you know. It's up to you. We could do it.
So, just for those of you who aren't aware, that weird looking like metal bar on my back, if you're expecting to carry like 80 pounds of venison and maybe a deer head on in or on your backpack, they make these sort of backpacks that have like scaffolding on them, essentially, so you can tie stuff to the the stiff steel bars so that it's not just hanging off the bag and you know floundering around. It's a little better on your back, I hear.
So I'm up at the top of a mountain. I'll show you what it looks like. It's pretty beautiful. All the snow just came down as we were climbing. I didn't get a chance. We really had to huff it just to get here and have a couple hours of sunlight left to look for deer. And saw one.
Yeah, it's funny that
one. I didn't see it.
I didn't realize my finger was. I guess that would be my Amazon brand or probably Home Depot glove right there. So,
a couple saw it with the nice Mennonite couple. Oops.
No idea what's going on there.
So they went a bit farther to go look for that. Husband has been doing this for like 15 years, so he's pretty equipped. And he's going to go get a buck for his wife. I stayed back.
Apparently, I thought my neckline needed to be the central focus of this video.
To look at a ridgeline behind. I can't really see. Just to see if I saw anything moving for about 30 minutes. I didn't. So I'm going to start slowly heading my way back. I've got a radio to call the couple to let them know to meet me on the way back down the trail. They'll certainly be faster than me. Unless they hear a shot, and then they've got a couple hours of chopping things up, and I'll go meet them and help them pack things out. Find out later. I have no idea how cold it is, but it's pretty cold. Crampons are full of snow that's turned into ice around my feet, and it's pretty lovely. It's certainly really nice. The sun's just yeah. So that's the sun at 2:30. The sun's gonna set a little before 4:30.
It was so cold. I know I mentioned here I don't know how cold it was. I suppose I could look back and find out. But it was so cold that taking off gloves was something that you didn't want to do for more than a second. But obviously I wasn't very good at holding the camera with gloves.
So I'd like to have 2 hours to hike down fairly steep. It's about.
And by the way, there was deer sign everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Mostly in the capacity of prints and scat. and but I think we did see. I don't think we saw any scrapes. I mean, we're talking late in the season, right? Uh, but the deer were insanely active. Probably early in the morning before you could get there, because they're not going to drop you off at 4 in the morning. As much as that actually would have been, uh, uh, I hesitate to say preferable. I mean, we're talking about climbing mountains that we've never climbed before. So doing that in the dark would be dangerous. But the deer know. It's essentially, I think I got the impression the deer understand that they have free roam of the mountaintops the first hours of daylight, the first 3 hours. They're never being pressured. The first two, you know. I've got more stories. Well, let this finish. I've got more stories about people who might possibly could do it in under two, but that was not us. Couldn't be us.
It's pretty steep. It's very steep, and it's about I think we're about 1,300 feet high, and we walked up from the beach at 9:30. We got to the top maybe by 12:31, something like that. So it took a while, but it's very beautiful. Very, very, very beautiful.
You can see the little flurries of snow really coming in. It was going to be a foot of snow by the next day, I believe, and we were expecting by this point that we were looking down the worst weather of the year, and it really would be the weather that would end the season, and that should have come. That typically comes more uh, incrementally over late November. Didn't come at all, and then was coming all at once. So temperature was really dropping. We were going to get the the sort of snow that you would want to already be there, so that you could go up, lower up the mountain and find the deer trying to escape the higher zones. But we were at this particular day we were at the top of the mountain in the middle of it, because most of the snow was not there by by dawn, by 9 a.m., and that snow was falling throughout, and we had a break in that at the top, but it was snowing throughout the morning, and would continue to snow as we were going down, and then the next couple days were essentially a blizzard.
There's a bit of the ridge line I was glassing for the.
All right, so I know I'm talking here, but there's some additional context I should mention that I'm not going to mention in the recording, so I'm just going to mention it now. So we were glassing that ridgeline, and with the Mennonite couple, and the wife saw a deer, and neither of us, the husband and I, did not see the deer. But she knew what she was looking at. I think they were out. They were from Wyoming. This they were both. I would say they were both. Maybe him even more. He was incredibly avid, uh, as you could tell from his gear, hunter, and his wife was pretty into it. But she was a really good outdoors woman, and so she could add on top of that the hunting sort of situation. She was a farm girl, and she had a keen eye for animals, so she spotted the first deer. And so, of course, what else are you going to do but say, well, you spotted it, so you have first rights to go after it. But it was too far. She just saw it go between. If you just look at the bottom of that mountain, the far mountain and you see the greeny bits, those are trees, and she saw a deer walk between those two things. So obviously it's too far away to shoot, but close enough to figure out how you could walk there, maybe if you had 45 minutes, and see if you can get closer and hopefully see it again, and if there's one deer, there might be others. And they ended up finding out that they were um, a fair amount of deer going in and out of there. But I figured that with my Amazon gear and my twisted knee from a couple days before, and frankly, just me being less of a exceptional athlete as these two were, I just thought I would stay behind. If we split up at this point, that I would have a better chance. Obviously, the husband's going to go with the wife to go find that deer. I could still tag along with them, but then what are we really doing at that point? I'm they saw a deer, so they should go after the deer. It's just going to become crowded if we see a deer again, you know. And what if I see the deer next? Are they going to follow me? You know what I mean? So at that point, it just made sense to split up. So I stayed behind, and that became a challenge because when you stay behind, you're exercising less, so your temperature drops, your internal temperature. That became a challenge. But I'll let this play out because there's a couple. There's this story develops in a dangerous way. Early afternoon. Sorry about the wind. There's a cold front coming in, as you can tell. It's gonna start to drop pretty severely this weekend, so it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough goings. But I'm gonna start heading down now. There's a bit of the south-facing slope. I was glassing for early afternoon with the team, with the other two. And trouble is with south-facing slopes is you got to sit on the north side of the facing slope to glass it, which means you are in the shade. And this time of year, there is a massive cold front coming in. It's gonna kind of ruin, starting tomorrow afternoon, sort of ruin the weather. Yeah, it's coming in from the door. So I'm staring into the wind, trying to hide behind these tiny Christmas trees, facing that sunny side, and just seeing nothing. And it's, as you can tell, it's already we don't have much daylight left. So if the deer wanted to soak up those rays, they pretty much got it at this point, and they're probably looking for places to bed down. So this is day 2. This is day 3 of being out here. Day 2 hunting. No shots fired. Okay, so I think I was saying there. Well, you don't need me to repeat what I just said in that recording, but that was an additional factor, was that I was on the wrong side of my mountain to stay warm. So let's summarize. I had a GPS device that I thought I had set up and hadn't. I just split up with the couple that I came up the mountain with, and we believed that our devices all worked where we could signal each other, and that was not the case, as we would find out, because periodically I was beeping them. I was bumping them and just checking in over the course of an hour, where you could just kind of chirp at them and it wouldn't disrupt their hunt, and I was getting no response. So while it was still daylight, I felt like that that wasn't something where I needed to go try and hit the button that would call the Coast Guard. But I was worried. Um, I was, what's the rest of the summary? I was on the wrong side of the mountain to stay warm. I was staying one place, so I couldn't stay warm. And I had a bunch of Amazon gear. That's another thing. So, just beautiful. I mean, probably the best scenic environment I've probably ever been in my life at the top of this. But as I started to realize that my GPS device wasn't working. Oh, that was another thing. The GPS device also had an app that you could check from your phone. And I did have a backup battery for my phone, so I was keeping that charged. And obviously, you're not really using it up there. So I was fine on battery, but as I got to the top and then split up, I realized that the GPS it should have traced the trail route that we took all the way up the mountain, which means I could have used that same little tracing to re-find the trail and then head back down again because there's no trail at the top. And what little trail there was coming up was now covered in snow, right? So, alone at the top of this mountain, I realized that the app had skipped uh, many points on our travels up this mountain, and just had geometric little jumps, letting me know that it had not traced almost all of our way up, and therefore was useless for fighting my way back down. So at that point, I realized that the only way I was getting down this mountain, I had two options. It was either um, stay in one spot in the cold on the dark side of the mountain, hoping that my friends were okay who did not have a GPS working and would find me. And then we could go down, and then hopefully their GPS worked, and we could go down together in the dark. Or I could stay until I thought it was about an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours before proper sunset, you know, and so just spend an hour up there essentially, which is what I did, attempting to hunt, and then use the daylight to hopefully find the trail and get down the mountain, uh, not in pitch darkness. And and if my friends who I went up the mountain with were in danger at all, that I could be first back to camp and I could notify, uh, the cabin crew and discuss next steps. So I elected for that latter option. It was gorgeous. I don't have to tell you that these were my phone screensavers for a long time. Never saw a deer. Looked super hard. You guys.
So someone had a very
Here's
successful
a deer
hunt
though.
pretty recently.
So this was me. I don't know if this was hypothermia delirium or something. Or I think I was coming through, as you can tell in some of this, my monologue footage. I had exited through the initial stages of grief from the first day of hunting. I had gotten some ducks, including a special harlequin, and I was up day two of the only other proper day I could really hunt, if unless the weather got dramatically better and the weather forecast wasn't as bad as it was telling us it was going to be. So I just started talking to myself, and I was touching the carcass of a recently field dressed deer.
As you can see, someone did a very good job of quartering this out, field dressing it.
Oh, and before I keep blathering on about this, spinal column of a Sitka blacktail, part of the reason I was noticing this as hard as I was because it was at the trail. It was essentially at the trailhead on the way up because we saw it together, and I found it on the way down. So I didn't feel like I was too lost. Also, I might have been spiraling slightly. Also, it was a surprise to me how um, how easy some people had it because that deer was right at the trailhead, and I could only imagine that it was shot and fell. Well, at least it fell really close to the trailhead. It was probably shot not too far off from the trailhead. So somebody had a pretty decent day, and it was not. Well, it wasn't me.
And I didn't see this on the way up. Here's the hide, which is kind of cool. Had a
Don't worry, I had my gloves on.
moment of thought of actually, I don't know. You kind of want a pelt from a deer that you took yourself, and the fur is already slipping, as you can tell. But didn't want to harvest that. Did an excellent job of even getting all the rib meat, which is a requirement in the state of Alaska. Got to get everything, folks. Got to savor every little piece. So somebody had a good harvest.
And just so you know, in Alaska, you are required to harvest all meat that is edible. So you can tell somebody did a pretty good job. You are supposed to. Let's see if I can backtrack slightly.
Got to get everything, folks.
You're supposed to basically take a razor blade and take out the rib meat between every single rib, which someone did. You're supposed to take all the neck meat, the meat off the back. That would be the back strap, or sometimes known as tenderloin. And someone did that. You can tell it was likely. You have every reason to think that this was a male deer because the head's gone. And you don't see any legs, do you? Because in field dressing, you would just you would take the legs with you and you'd break them down further at camp.
Savor every little piece. So somebody had a good harvest.
Okay, so the spiral continues. So I just straight up lost the trail at a certain point. There was a way in. There was a certain point on that mountain, and it was a fair distance. It was probably let's just say half a mile conservatively, where the three of us heading up and heading over just kind of wandered through, and it was just intermittent tree line. We just zigzagged in and out, and it was snowing. So on the way back, there was no path to find on the way down. So I had the desperate idea because it was crazy. There was fresh deer tracks where I know we had been. This is how close I was to deer and never saw them. There were deer tracks fresher than our tracks heading up in the zone where I was trying to find my way back down to reclaim the trail. So if I had just stayed there, I suppose I would have seen a deer. But at some point I thought, a lot of times these deer will go as it gets colder and as the snow is piling up, they're going to head down slightly, right? At dusk. And they're going to know a way down. So I just figured I'm gonna follow a deer. Maybe I'll convince myself that a deer is keeping me from becoming part of the winter frost uh, tree line landscape for the next 6 months. And then somebody during spring bear season has to uh, trip over my remains and ship me home to Florida. Let's avoid that, and let's see if we can follow a deer's tracks down the mountain. In hindsight, describing that, I realize it was insane as it sounds. It sounds as insane to me as it does to you. But guess what? I followed this particular deer, uh, rather on the larger side for a Sitka. So I'm just picturing it was a buck, and the buck brought me back to the trail. That's my story. It did happen that way. I did follow this one. There was one deer. It had a consistent hoof print, and I followed that one deer because I could not find. There were no human footprints that, and I could not find the trail. So, and I didn't have a GPS that worked, and daylight was heading out, and I couldn't contact anybody. So, following this deer trail, and it was not taking. I knew it wasn't taking me far away from where the trail was, and I knew that it was descending. So it just kind of gave me a goal, to like I need to descend this mountain, and I do know I'm heading in the right direction of because I knew where the cabin was, but I just had no idea where the trail was. So if I just descend in the direction that I can see, and I've got a goal with following, a deer that I'm ostensibly, allegedly supposed, out here to hunt, all the way from Florida to hunt. It's just it it could be worse, but it worked because I followed this for about a quarter mile and I found the trail. So how about them apples? If you want to tell a better story than that, I invite you to come up with alternatives. The deer saved me, and this is what it was like at the. This is what it was like at like 4 p.m. Me busting in past the generators here and saying, "Hey guys, I have no idea where the other two are. Can you use your backup radios to try to contact them with their little GPS thingy? See if it works." They tried it. They actually weren't worried. Maybe they knew something I didn't. That these guys were more advanced outdoors men and women than I was. And so I just sat down by the fire. And at about, I want to say like 7:30 p.m. So a couple hours past complete darkness. Uh, my Mennonite friend and his wife came down the mountain. And I think she had hurt her knee by this point. Somehow they had made it. Um, they found pretty decent, I mean, a very decent, I would say, deer. I mean, you can tell, like, this is a thick little fella and not big antlers, but that's how they run, when it's Sitka. And that's pretty special deer to bring home. So we're going to see the result of him breaking that down that night. But they both got back safe. They realized they were together, so that's fine. So they were safer than I was, but they also had no GPS, and they figured I just went down the mountain, and they found my footprints as they're going down. So they knew I was safe at least, which is nice. Yeah, they shot at this guy. Try to remember the story. He had a suppressor, and that became the difference. he had a pretty good baffle stack on his rifle. So the only thing that was coming out the end of his rifle was a little crack, but it wasn't loud enough to alert the deer. So he had several. I think he believed he had hit his rifle on the way up and probably bumped the scope and was completely uncalibrated for his shots, which is a horror. Like, that's horrific to find out, because I believe him. He was a pretty good shot, but he kept missing. But the deer didn't know that he was being shot at because it wasn't a loud rifle shot. So, both of them took several shots at this deer until they finally wounded it. They hiked in a fair distance and had to uh, had to shoot a second time and finish it off, but they were able to track it down. As you can tell, still in daylight, which is great. You can see he's doing what you're supposed to do, which is get all that rib meat out. He was a pro, and that's what it looks like all taken out. You can see that's pretty good. It's a fair amount of meat. He didn't give me any of that meat. And that's kind of hunter's privilege. Obviously, it'd be really skeezy of me to ask for a slice, but it would have been nice if he had. I had actually saved. There was some, like, I don't know. It was like Walmart. Or Walmart didn't sell liquor in Alaska. I had to go to this other place. I don't know. It was like Fireball whiskey and cherry Coke that I brought that I was going to toast to myself when I got a deer, and I did not get a deer, so I poured this for my friend, and he enjoyed it. I don't know if he broke a Mennonite law by doing it, but I felt that he had earned it. So, like, 9 p.m., he was drinking that Fireball with cherry Coke. I mean, look at that. That's what you had to bring all that down your backpack. Yeah. At this point, I'm just glad to be alive. Might have died. Might have died. Now that chapter is behind, I could just say that. So the next day, at this point, I'm taking duck parts and I am stringing them up in trees over warrens in holes and stuff, and hoping that a varmint comes out that I can take and harvest a pelt from. I thought that would be cool. I brought everything. I brought, like, salt, and that sort of thing, so I could have safely transported that back to Florida and made a nice, I don't know. So I was hoping there were a lot of foxes out here, including black fox and cross fox, which is it's like if a black fox and a red fox have a baby together, you get an interesting fur pattern that's a hybrid of sorts. And the silver fox. So I was looking for all that. Never saw a single fox. And I was so desperate. This is so embarrassing. I told my host, I was like, this isn't even true. My wife didn't even want me to go on this trip. But I was like, my wife wants me on my shield, coming back with my shield or on it. You gotta help me out, bro. It was so, like, I was just like, it was really embarrassing by that point. And so he found a old, like, caller sort of thing. It was just like MP3 player that would play distressed rabbit sounds, and you would just hope that a fox would hear that and want to come hang out with you. you know. So I was really I was like, you know what, everybody else is getting a deer. If I get a fox, that's a special, that's a better story, you know. That was my cope. And at this point, I'm hanging out with ground squirrels because I thought I never saw a ground squirrel. Everything was completely already in full hibernation. This was weird. It was like, do fairies live here? Like, what the heck's going on? Why are they doing this? Apparently, this is what I just took pictures of this and asked them, and they laughed at me. This is what ground squirrels do. Not in Florida. And then the blizzard's really coming in. So, there were people who came out for duck hunting by this point, another group that basically had no chance. And they were super upset. But, I mean, what are you going to do? I don't know what I'm taking a picture of here. I think. So, it was so bad. This is kind of a fun part of this. It was so bad, I'll just let me turn down the media source. It was so bad that it had actually iced over between us and Kodiak, which means we had to pay $200 each to get a air taxi. And this insane guy, make sure this is quiet enough, was like, he agreed. You know, he had 2 hours to get us to Kodiak and back in 3 trips because there was only room for 3 people plus him, as you can see. And his brother was a helicopter pilot for the Navy, I believe, which means he's even more insane than this guy was. But I was like, you know what, $200, that ain't cheap. But how many times do you get to be in a seaplane? So, you know, it was another failure that we cope turned into a success. Because, yeah. And I mean, you're literally, again, you're watching like whales and stuff down there. There are so many otters. You could like toss a rock. I don't think I really got footage of otters, but you could see there were times where there were like 100 otters. Like, oh, we're going sideways. There we go. This is us touching back down. You can see on the left-hand side the seaplane harbor that he would be turning us into. Yeah, you can see it off right over there. Yeah, there would be like 100 otters literally like holding hands, sleeping. They're super cool. And yeah, I picked up well, you know what? We're almost done. I should probably do a little show and tell. If you'll permit me to walk away for just a second. Okay, I'm back. Here's my Harlequin. So I did get to go home with something rather cool. This just got finished about, I think, less than 3 weeks ago. And I'm pretty happy with the result, except the display he was in was really, it's actually really ugly. I'm not going to name who did it, which taxidermy service did it, but because I don't know, is what it is. But so I'm doing my own display, but he's got like a 1 foot up, 1 foot down kind of thing because I think that looks cool. Get some variety. So he's going. You'll have to follow me on X to see the finished result as I put that together. And otter skull. Found this while walking one of the days between the successful deer hunt of my Mennonite friend and this air evacuation was us walking up and down the beach trying to just shoot a special duck from with our shotguns from the beach. And the ducks always were smart enough to stay far away from us. But at this point, I think my Mennonite friends, I was just desperate for something cool to take home. And I was like, do you want that? You want that? Are you going to be doing anything with that otter skull that you found on the beach? He's like, no. Why would I want that? I wouldn't. He was saying that because he knew I wanted something. So I'm happy with that. I don't know if that's legal, but is what it is. Nobody's watching this, right? I also got an eagle feather. I should probably bring that over. This is super cool. This goes with this. These go together. Hopefully that's self-explanatory, right? Probably does bear some explanation. So these are like Japanese. It's like a glass ball, and it's hollow and it's sealed with air, and it floats, right? And they're tied up in this particular way with a single piece of string, no knots, which is kind of cool. It's just kind of twisted in a particular way, and they just kind of bob on the surface and hold like crab nets, I guess, or something, or it's for shrimping. That part I don't really understand, but that's what they do in Japan, or they did until like the 90s or something. People don't really use them anymore in Japan, but they wash up every single year in Alaska, particularly after a bad storm, which is cool. People will go out in seaplanes with like just a seaplane full of empty coolers, and hit an island shore after a bad storm, and you pick up like 1,000 of these and you sell them for $30 each on Etsy. I mean, you can understand that pays for the gas in the seaplane, so that's pretty cool. I probably shouldn't implicate myself further. I already showed that I have an otter skull. I think you're only supposed to have an eagle feather if you're a Native American. And my wife's Native American, so there's that. But let's just say I don't have an eagle feather. There's no evidence. This is all parody show anyway, right? This is all, we're just having fun and games talk. But I don't even know if I can put him down. I think I'm stuck with holding him until the end of this. It's probably more fun that way. Yeah, pretty amazing to get in this thing, though. Highly recommend seaplane evacuation. Super friendly people. Obviously, all of them are a little bit crazy. Yeah, and that's the end. That's me getting on the plane with Mennonite friend to head back to Anchorage on my way to, Seattle Tacoma Airport, and then from there probably a couple more changes before I'm back in Southern Florida. But that was the trip. That was my very expensive bird watching tour. I hope you enjoy it. Sometimes, sometimes there comes a time in a man's life where you have to do something just to prove that you can do it to yourself, and the journey is its own reward because you have to demonstrate that you understand that it's opportunity. Um, the opportunities are what they are, but you're going to do everything you can to show up at the right time with the right equipment, with the right mindset and experience and background to make the most of that opportunity. And that's what I did in Kodiak Island, Alaska. I showed up, uh, with some Amazon parts, but I showed up at the right time, maybe a little too late in the year. Showed up with the right experience. You know, I've hunted 2 deers before. I'm 3 years in to hunting at that point, and didn't have my GPS figured out. Didn't have a number of things, but I was the only person there by myself. Everybody was absolutely floored that I even made it, and I'm pretty impressed with that. Everybody else was essentially a professional hunter, and and spent a lot more money, make a lot more money, and then spend it on this avocation. And I think it was a greater achievement for me to actually be there and to come back alive, and and to be at the exact right point. Just had to have that deer cross my path. Just have to have that deer decide that it was going to go home with me, and no deer decided to do that, which is fine. Which is how honestly most hunts go. That's just the way of the hunt. Is that most hunts become bird watching tours. So I was perfectly happy. This it's actually I thought I was going to be sad going through this. I'm actually kind of happy that we did this tour together, guys, because I think it was something of an accomplishment to actually figure this out and to go there by myself. Admittedly, then be hosted, and pointed to the direction I needed to go, and then occasionally team up with other hunters who were far better than I was. But yeah, sometimes you just got to do this, and I couldn't recommend it. There, there's things you can buy. You can buy expensive gear. Okay, you can buy plane tickets. You can buy guided hunts, but you can't buy stories. Okay, so that's the last nauseatingly sentimental message I'll leave with you. You can't buy stories. So if you have an opportunity, if you feel the call, because most people just honestly don't ever feel the call, and you shouldn't go on and go grab a story like this if you don't feel the call to get it. But I felt the call, and I answered it, and I said, I'm going to get me a story. And I think you just heard that story. So thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for meeting my Harlequin. Um, Again, follow me on X, and you'll see in a couple days. I should be done with the mount. I'm just waiting. I think tomorrow I'm supposed to get the platform, the wooden platform with the fake sand, so I can finally finish this thing. But yeah, that's how my early December of 2025 went. Uh, I did go up. Oh, I will leave you with one last thing. I remember at the top of that second mountain, the Snow Air Mountain, where I was by myself, and I had realized that the GPS had failed me, or I had failed to figure out the GPS before going up and before splitting off from the professionals that I had gone up with. And I just remember thinking, God, uh, like what do I have to give up here? And I just remember feeling like he was telling me, you're just gonna have to give your expectations. You're just gonna have to give up your expectations. They're in my hands. They're not in yours. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give you my expectations. I don't know what I'm doing up here. Maybe it's the last day of my life. Or maybe I'm just having a great experience. But whatever my expectations are for being out here, I'm gonna give them over to you. And I just remember thinking like, well, okay, now that I do that, can I ask for anything? Do I get any, like, what do I receive being up here? Because now I just gave you my expectations. So what happens next? Is there an exchange or anything? And I just remember God being like, well, you get me, you get happiness, you get forgiveness, for specifically forgiveness for your expectations. Because there was probably some hubris and some ignorance mixed into my expectation for going out there. But you get all of this that you're experiencing, and you get zero blame for the crazy ideas that brought you up here, the expectations that brought you up here. And I was like, you know what? That's a fair exchange. And it wasn't. I actually got more than what I heard that I was going to get, because I also got a story. So, and I got to share it with you guys several months later. So that's enough sentimentality. That's enough shoegazing. That's enough autumnal Matt C for you. But that's the story. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for letting me take you through a walking tour of my bird watching experience, my alleged deer hunting experience in the great state of Alaska. Thanks for hanging out with me as I premiered this. I was with you in the chat. Hope you enjoyed that. And there'll be more conventional content video that hopefully doesn't even involve, you don't even have to have the video up like this one. You just listen to audio as we do like a little podcast. We've got some more things planned. We're just trying to schedule when folks are ready to do those particular things. But I've got good content coming in the future. Promise there'll be less autobiographical navel gazing in the future. But this was one that I've been meaning. I had to get the media content put down alongside a story so that while it was still relatively fresh. So thanks again for hanging out with me. Talk to you again in the very near future.